university alumni reunion. My girlfriend of 7 years, drunk and emboldened by the crowd, kissed her ex in front of everyone. Although it was a brief touch and go, the atmosphere fell silent and all eyes turned to me. Contrary to everyone's expectations, I showed no reaction and instead led the applause, cheering, "One more." I still remember that my girlfriend Sophia looked at me with a startled expression, a mix of baffled anger, as if she had misheard, and the guilty, frightened clarity of someone coming to their senses. The music in the KTV private room was deafening, and multicolored lights spun around, casting everyone's faces in grotesque hues. Sophia stood in the center of that play of light and shadow, surrounded by a group of college classmates. She was wearing a red dress today, very eye-catching. She held a glass of red wine, and her cheeks had a pleasant flush. The jeering started with Jake. Jake, Sophia's ex-boyfriend, the celebrity of our university days, is now Mr. Miller at a medium-sized company. He held his wine glass with that familiar, slightly provocative smile as he looked at Sophia. "Sophia, drink this and let's call it an explanation to our lost youth. How about it?" The people around roared along. "Kiss her. Kiss here. Jake, how generous." Sophia, not even giving him face. I sat on the corner sofa, silently watching it all. Sophia and I had been together for 7 years, from sophomore year until now, 7 whole years. I knew her. She cared about appearances, was vain, and especially in front of Jake, she always wanted to prove she was doing well and was attractive. In that atmosphere where everyone was watching, she would half resist and half give in. Sure enough, Sophia hesitated for a moment, her gaze flicking to me. I showed no expression, just watched her quietly. Maybe she took my silence for consent, or maybe the alcohol and vanity got the better of her. She tipped her head back and drained her glass. Amid the deafening cheers, Jake leaned in and brushed her lips. Very light, breaking at once. But the whole private room went silent in an instant. The music kept playing, yet everyone's breathing seemed to pause. Dozens of pairs of eyes all turned to me, their gazes mixed with sympathy, schadenfreude, and a hungry expectation for drama. They wanted to see me rage, to see me flip the table, to see me rush over and fight Jake, to watch a real life, charging for love scene. But I didn't. I even smiled. Then I raised my hand and clap, clap, clap applauded crisply. Good. I stood up, my voice not loud but clearly cutting over the music. That was a great kiss. It was too short. I couldn't see it properly. How about another one? Everyone was stunned. Jake's smug expression froze. Sophia's drunkenness vanished almost instantly. She looked at me in disbelief, her eyes first shocked, then angry, and finally turning to panic with a faint, barely noticeable trace of fear. She opened her mouth, trying to say something, but no words came out. I picked up the coat on the table and put it on slowly and deliberately. You continue having fun. I'm leaving. I already paid for the bill. I turned, opened the private room door, and shut behind me that stretch of dead silence and stunned faces. The corridor was very quiet, like a different world from inside. I leaned against the wall, took a deep breath, and slowly let it out. The familiar, betrayed sting in my chest was still there, but was no longer as sharp. Because just half an hour earlier, on the way to the reunion, I had received a phone call. A man claiming to be a global trust legal advisor, in a tone devoid of any emotion and formulaic, told me that my grandfather, whom I had never met and had only seen in a black and white photo among my parents' belongings, had died in Switzerland. He had no other relatives. I was his only legal heir. Mr. Johnson, the man called Attorney Patrick, said on the phone, according to the will of your grandfather, Mr. Elias Johnson, you will inherit all of his assets, including but not limited to the entirety of Skyward Capital's shares, real estate holdings in 127 countries worldwide, and a private trust fund at UBS. Preliminary valuation places the total estate at over $1 trillion US. $1 trillion. I was riding my little electric scooter at the time, stopped at an intersection, waiting for the light to change. Hearing that number, I nearly fell off with the scooter. I thought it was a scam call. until the caller accurately recited my parents' names, my ID number, and even said I have a heart-shaped birthmark on my left buttock. Mr. Johnson, I know this is hard to believe. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., please come to the top floor of Metro Tower, the Asia headquarters of Skyward Capital. I will hand over all the legal documents to you in person. My assistant will send the exact address and my contact information to your phone shortly. After the call ended, my phone immediately received a message. I stared at the unfamiliar name on my phone screen, Elias Johnson, then glanced again at Skyward Capital, a company name that sounded like something out of a sci-fi movie, and my mind went blank. I pinched myself. It hurt. Then I arrived at the alumni reunion. Then I saw Sophia and Jake kissing. 7 years of love ended with that kiss and my applause, a ridiculous and hasty full stop. Perhaps this is fate. It takes something from you in one place, and somewhere else compensates you in a way you could never imagine. I laughed at myself and took out my phone. On the screen, besides the address sent by attorney's assistant, there was a WhatsApp message just sent by Sophia. Ethan, what do you mean? Even through the screen, I could feel her anger and accusation. I lit a cigarette. Amid the curling smoke, I slowly typed a few words. Literally, after a moment's thought, I added another line. Let's break up. Sent. Then I blocked her and deleted her. Done in one go. Stepping out of the KTV, the midnight cold wind blew and my muddled mind cleared up quite a bit. I didn't go home. I had no desire to return to the small room Sophia and I rented together. It was full of traces of our 7 years together. Every single item seemed to be mocking my failure. I found a 24-hour convenience store by the road, bought a can of cold beer, and sat on the steps by the entrance. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. Ethan, you bastard. If you got guts, don't block me. Tell me exactly what you mean. 7 years of a relationship, and you just call it off? All because of that stupid joke? Are you even a man? It was Sophia. She got a new number just to curse me. I looked at the message and felt surprisingly little. Maybe the shock of that $1 trillion inheritance was so strong it had diluted all other feelings. A joke? I sneered. 7 years. Aren't there enough of these jokes already? In our junior year, Jake gave Sophia a necklace worth $5,000. She accepted it and told me it was a birthday gift from a classmate. Sorry, I can't refuse. The phone I bought her with 2 months worth of part-time savings she used for only a week before saying, "It's too slow, the old one works better," and switching back. After we started working, Jake would drive his BMW 3 Series to the building where we worked to give her a ride to dinner. She'd dress up carefully, sit in the front passenger seat, then post on social media with the caption, "Thanks to a good classmate for helping me out in a pinch, otherwise I'd have to cram onto the subway." And me, I was on the subway at that moment, one hand holding the rail, the other carrying the dishes she liked. And her mother who always looked down on me, Margaret. Every time I went to her house, I had to endure up to an hour of ideological education. The core idea was always the same. My daughter is so outstanding. How could you possibly be good enough? Hurry and take the civil service exam. Hurry and buy a house, or just get lost. And Sophia never said a single word in my defense. She would only hold me afterwards, and in that gentle tone, I once couldn't resist, say, "My mom only wants what's best for me, so cut her some slack. We'll be fine." I used to believe it. I thought that if I worked hard enough and loved her enough, one day I would make her and her family satisfied, and finally drive away a clinging pest like Jake for good. I worked myself to the bone, working late into the night every day. My salary rose from $3,000 to $15,000. I thought our life was getting better, but I forgot that however fast I improved, it could never keep up with her ever-swelling vanity. Tonight's kiss was nothing but the last straw that broke the camel's back. It made me see clearly that these 7 years may have been a one-man show all along. I finished the last sip of beer, crushed the can, and tossed it into the trash. Ding dong. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't Sophia, but a text notification from a bank. "Dear customer, your savings card, ending in XXXX, received a transfer at 0:35 in the amount of $1 million US. Current balance, $1,003,542 US and 18 cents. I counted ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions. 1 million US dollars. Right after, a text from the attorney arrived. Mr. Johnson, this is your basic living allowance for the month. Your grandfather's will specifically states that until all his assets are officially transferred into your name, a fixed sum will be deposited into your personal account each month to ensure your standard of living. Please feel free to spend it. My hand is trembling a little. The most money I've ever seen in my life was the $300,000 the at-fault party paid when my parents were in a car accident. I kept that money untouched, and together with the few tens of thousands of dollars I saved from working for a few years, that was my entire net worth. And now, there's an extra $1 million in my bank account. And that's just the basic living allowance. I stared at that balance for a minute, then stood up and walked into the convenience store. Boss, what's the most expensive cigarette you have? The owner rummaged under the counter and pulled out a neatly packaged pack of cigarettes. Heaven and earth, $100 a pack. Give me a carton. All right, I paid, stepped out holding the whole pack of cigarettes, opened one and lit one up. The taste was just okay, but the feeling was definitely different. I held a taxi by the roadside. Driver, take me to the most expensive hotel in the city. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I was wearing clothes that cost less than $500 in total, my hair tousled by the wind. There was no sign of a rich man. Young man, that place isn't cheap. I pulled 10 crisp US bills out of my wallet and handed them over. Drive. Consider the extra as a tip. The driver's eyes lit up. He floored the gas and the car smoothly merged into traffic. Got it, hold on tight. Half an hour later, the car stopped at the entrance of a resplendent hotel in the city center. Park Hyatt Hotel. Even the cheapest room per night starts at $5,000. I had walked past here before, not even daring to look up. Now, I opened the car door and walked straight in. The doorman tried to stop me at the door, but when he saw the taxi driver behind me grinning ear to ear as he counted money, he hesitated. I walked up to the front desk, ignoring the slight scrutiny beneath the receptionist's professional smile. One room, the best one you've got. Sir, our best, the presidential suite, is $88,800 US dollars per night. She reminded me with a smile, emphasizing the words 88,008. I know, I took out my bank card. Book it for a week. The receptionist's smile stiffened for a moment. When the POS machine spit out the receipt and showed payment successful, the smile on her face instantly became extremely sincere and enthusiastic. All right, Mr. Johnson, here's your key card. It's on the top floor, 38th floor. We'll arrange a private butler to take you up right away. I took the key card and stepped into the elevator. Looking at my reflection on the elevator wall, I suddenly felt somewhat unfamiliar with myself. Same face, same cheap clothes, but it seemed like something had changed completely. The presidential suite was ridiculously large. Outside the enormous floor-to-ceiling windows was the dazzling night view of the whole Jing city. There was a living room, a study, a bedroom, a walk-in closet, 2 bathrooms, and even a small private gym. I wandered around the rooms, over and over like a country bumpkin who'd just come to the city. Finally, I threw myself into that enormous bathtub that could fit 4 of me. The hot water enveloped my body, and my tense nerves finally began to loosen. I closed my eyes. My mind was a mess. Grandpa, $10 trillion, Skyward Capital, Sophia's kiss, Jake's smug face, my classmates' glances. These scenes flashed by like a revolving lantern. In just a few hours, my life had been forcibly steered onto a path I wouldn't have dared even to dream of. I didn't even have time to be sad before I was overwhelmed by immense shock and a sense of unreality. After the bath, I wrapped myself in a robe and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the traffic teeming below. Those skyscrapers that once made me feel oppressed and insignificant now looked like building blocks arranged on a sandbox. My phone kept vibrating on the bed. I picked it up and saw a dozen missed calls, all from Sophia. There were also dozens of WhatsApp messages from our shared university classmates group. I opened the group chat, and it was already blowing up. WTF, what's up with Ethan? He just left like that. Didn't fight, boring. Do you think he was so angry he went stupid? He even applauded and cheered. So weird. Jake sent a red envelope in the group, then said, maybe this is just class. Realizing he doesn't deserve Sophia, he stepped back, pretty self-aware. Let's not talk about him anymore. It's a buzzkill. Come on. Next round's on me. Roll number 1. Let's go. A bunch of people below fawned. Jake mighty. Follow Jake and you'll get meat to eat. Sophia didn't say anything in the group. I looked at Jake's not worthy of Sophia, and my gaze turned cold. Before, I might have been angry, might have been unwilling to accept it. But now, I only found it ridiculous. An ant mocking a great dragon. I left the group chat and opened Sophia's profile. She had switched back to her account. Clearly she realized I had blocked the other one too, and had started sending me friend requests to send verification messages. Ethan, where are you? Let's talk. I was wrong. I shouldn't have made that kind of joke with Jake. Please don't be mad, okay? 7 years together. You can't do this to me. Pick up the phone. You coward. I read them one by one, then turned off my phone. Talk. There's nothing left to discuss. The next morning I woke up in a soft, spacious bed. Sunlight poured in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, warm and gentle. The hotel delivered a sumptuous breakfast, so exquisite it looked like a work of art. As I ate a breakfast worth several $100s, I used the tablet the hotel provided to search for Skyward Capital. The results shocked me. There is pitifully little public information online about Skyward Capital. Only a few brief lines describing it as a long-established global investment holding company with businesses spanning energy, technology, finance, biomedicine, and other fields. There are no detailed reports about its founder, ownership structure, or asset size. The more mysterious it is, the more it suggests terrifying strength. I had a vague sense that what I was inheriting might be more than just money. At 8:30, I changed into a brand new Armani suit the hotel had prepared for me. The fit was perfect as if tailor-made. The man in the mirror was both strange and familiar. The well-tailored suit masked my slightly thin frame, making me look considerably more upright. My hair had been carefully styled, revealing a full forehead. Dress makes the man. That saying really is true. I took a taxi to Metro Tower. The security guard at the entrance saw me, immediately snapped to attention and saluted, pulling open the glass door for me. I walked into the lobby, and a young woman in professional attire with a poised demeanor immediately came forward to meet me. Mr. Johnson, good morning. I am attorney's assistant. My name is Emma Davis. Attorney has been waiting for you. I nodded and followed her into a private elevator. There were no floor buttons inside. Emma pressed the fingerprint scanner and the elevator rose smoothly. With a ding, the elevator doors opened. Before me was a huge, futuristic office. The entire top floor had been opened up, and the enormous floor-to-ceiling windows offered a 360-degree, unbeatable view. A middle-aged man in a dark gray suit, his hair combed immaculate, stood up and walked toward me, a gentle smile on his face. Mr. Johnson, hello. I'm Patrick, your grandfather's private legal counsel. He was attorney. His Mandarin had a slight Hong Kong accent, sounding steady and dependable. Good afternoon, attorney. I extended my hand and shook his. His palm was warm and firm. Please sit. We sat down on the sofa in the reception area. Emma brought us coffee. Patrick took a large stack of documents out of an exquisite leather briefcase. Mr. Johnson, I know you must have a lot of questions right now. Before you sign these documents, I think I need to explain to you what you are about to inherit. The next hour became an hour that completely overturned my understanding of the first half of my life. Patrick described, in a tone so calm it bordered on cold, a business empire so vast it was unimaginable. My grandfather, who only existed to me in photographs, Elias Johnson, was by no means an ordinary man. He was a Chinese who went overseas to make his way after World War II, starting from plantation and mining businesses in Southeast Asia. Over decades, through a series of investments and acquisitions precise to the point of being terrifying, he built Skyward Capital, an invisible empire spanning the globe. Energy, minerals, the internet, artificial intelligence, genetic biology, almost every profitable sector bears the mark of Skyward Capital. Many of the international giants we all know have Skyward Capital as a controlling shareholder. Put it this way, Mr. Johnson, Patrick adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. Every fluctuation in the global stock markets, every rise and fall in Middle Eastern oil prices, every wave of technological revolution in Silicon Valley, to one degree or another, your grandfather is behind them. My heart was pounding. This was beyond my comprehension. This was not wealth. This was power. My father. I didn't know about this? I asked with difficulty. Patrick showed a trace of apology on his face. I'm very sorry. Back then your grandfather and your grandmother separated because of some family reasons, and your father was raised by your grandmother. For complex reasons, the old gentleman never went to disturb their lives. He only watched from the shadows. He thought he had plenty of time to gradually make amends, but unexpectedly. He didn't finish, but I understood. The son wants to care for his parents, but the parents are gone. Perhaps for my grandfather, it was the parent wants to care for the son, but the son is gone. He hadn't had time to acknowledge my father before my parents died in a car accident, and I became his only bloodline left in this world. The old gentleman's will is very clear. Patrick pushed a document toward me. You are the sole heir. From the moment you sign this document, you will be the ultimate controller of Skyward Capital. I looked at the document. Every word on it felt like it carried 1,000 pounds of weight. My hand was trembling. Patrick seemed to notice my nervousness and smiled gently. Mr. Johnson, you don't need to feel any pressure. The old gentleman has paved the way for you. The professional management team at Skyward Capital, myself included, will fully assist you. All you need to do is learn and adapt at your own pace. Of course, if you prefer, you can choose to do nothing for the rest of your life. The money in the trust fund is enough for you and your descendants to squander for centuries. Squander it for a few hundred years. I took a deep breath, thinking of Sophia, thinking of Jake, thinking of Margaret's sharp face. If I'd merely received a sum of money, perhaps I would have chosen to change my name, go somewhere no one knew me, and start a new life. But now, what I inherited was power. A power that could easily crush those who once looked down on me and humiliated me. Why should I hide? I picked up the pen and at the end of the document, stroke by stroke, signed my name, Ethan Johnson. The moment my pen left the paper, Patrick and Emma beside him stood up at the same time and bowed deeply to me. Chairman. That single chairman instantly transformed me from that delivery guy riding an electric scooter into the ruler of this business empire. I leaned back on the sofa, feeling like I had just experienced an absurd dream. All right, I waved my hand, forcing myself to adjust to this new identity. Attorney, I need you to help me with a few things. Please give your orders. First, help me look up someone named Jake and his family's company, something like Grand Horizon Group. I want everything they have on them. Okay. Patrick nodded, and Emma immediately began recording on the tablet. Second, there's still some of my personal belongings in the rental I used to live in, and I don't want to go back. Help me deal with them. Pack up anything that belongs to me and send it to the hotel where I'm staying. Anything that isn't mine, throw it away. I understand. Third, I paused, looking out the window by the Park Hyatt Hotel for me. Patrick and Emma were both taken aback. Chairman, do you mean you want to rent the presidential suite long term? Patrick ventured. No, I shook my head, speaking each word distinctly. I mean by that building, that hotel, by the whole thing. I don't like staying in other people's places. Patrick was stunned for 3 seconds. Then a look of approval spread across his face. I understand, Chairman. This really has the bearing of your grandfather back in the day. I'll have the M&A team make contact immediately. Park Hyatt Hotel belongs to the Cairns Group. Skyward Capital holds 12% of Cairns shares and is their third largest shareholder. Acquiring one branch shouldn't be a problem. I nodded, and the unease and bewilderment that had arisen from my sudden wealth vanished without a trace after issuing those 3 orders. So this is what it feels like to be in control of everything. The efficiency was astonishing. While I was still getting familiar with things in Skyward Capital's office, Emma had already sent Jake's family files to my personal email. Jake's father is named George Miller. He built his business from nothing and spent more than 20 years in the building materials trade, founding Grand Horizon Group. The company is neither very big nor very small, with a market value of roughly $500 million. Grand Horizon Group's main business is supplying cement and rebar to several large real estate companies in Jing City. Their biggest client is a company called Imperial Dawn Properties. Over 60% of Grand Horizon Group's orders come from Imperial Dawn Properties. I forwarded that file to Patrick. Imperial Dawn Properties? Patrick glanced and immediately said, I have some impression of this company. 3 years ago, they had a cash flow problem. It was our subsidiary Pinnacle Investments that injected some capital to help them through. We now hold 35% of their shares and are the controlling shareholder of Imperial Dawn Properties. I smiled. What a coincidence. Attorney, I said, on behalf of Pinnacle Investments, notify Imperial Dawn Properties that, effective today, they must terminate all cooperation with Grand Horizon Group. As for the reason, just say their product quality does not meet our standards. Patrick understood at once. Understood. I'll have the legal department handle it and make sure we face no legal risk of breach. And I added, say hello to Mr. Leonard Harris, the chairman of Imperial Dawn Properties. Tell him I said so. From now on, any business related to the Miller family is strictly off limits. Not just Imperial Dawn, but the other companies in this industry too. Please send my regards to them as well. Patrick smiled and nodded. Tell the chairman not to worry. In this city, no one dares to disrespect Skyward Capital. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. I could imagine the look on George Miller's face when this news reached his ears. The lifeblood of Grand Horizon Group was now, just like that, easily squeezed into my hand. And they didn't even know who the enemy was. The feeling was strange. It was like standing in a God's eye view, moving the pieces on a chessboard. In the afternoon, I returned to the hotel. In the presidential suite, there were several huge suitcases. They were all my belongings from the rental apartment. A few clothes, a few books, and that old photo frame my parents had left behind. In the photo frame, my young parents are smiling brightly. I picked up the frame and gently wiped the dust off it. Dad, Mom, it seems your son is finally going to make something of himself. I said silently in my mind. As for Sophia's things, they've already been treated as trash. That includes her designer bags, the lipsticks I scrimped and saved to buy for her, and all the couple items we once picked out together. I had the hotel butler leave those suitcases untouched in the corner of the cloakroom. Then I called Emma. Find me a designer. I want this room redecorated. Also, arrange a driver and 2 bodyguards. Okay, Chairman, do you have any preference for the car? I thought for a moment and said, get something comfortable and low-key. Half an hour later, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up in front of the hotel. The license plate consisted of 5/8. I looked at the car and the 2 burly bodyguards standing beside it in black suits and sunglasses and fell into thought. Assistant Davis, is this what you call low-key? On the other end of the line, Emma's tone sounded innocent. Chairman, this is already the cheapest car in the garage. Your grandfather doesn't like driving. Most of the cars in his garage are limited edition supercars and custom bulletproof vehicles. I had nothing to say. Poverty, once again, limited my imagination. I sat in the back seat of the Rolls-Royce. The soft leather felt like it would swallow you. There was a faint, pleasant scent in the car. The driver was a middle-aged man of around 40, not very talkative, and he drove extremely smoothly. Chairman, where to? Where to? For a moment, I was somewhat bewildered. I've lived in this city for 7 years, but it feels like apart from that small rented room and the company, there's nowhere else to go. Let's just drive around, I said. The car started slowly and merged silently into the traffic. I watched the streets flash by outside the window when my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar landline number. I picked up and a sharp female voice came through. Ethan, you ungrateful wretch. What did you do to Sophia? She didn't come home all night, and she called you, but you didn't pick up. Did you dump her? It was Sophia's mother, Margaret. I will never forget that voice in my life. Why do you have to dump our Sophia? How is our Sophia not good enough for you? You make that pathetic salary each month, living off our family, drinking from our family. Now that your wings are grown, is that it? I'm telling you, hurry up and come apologize to me, or I'll make sure you can't survive in this city. I listened quietly to her hysterical rant on the other end of the phone, not saying a single word. Before, every time I heard her voice, I felt humiliated and suffocated. But now, I only find it noisy. Are you finished? I said lightly when she paused for a moment. Margaret was stunned for a moment, as if she hadn't expected me to speak to her in that tone. What kind of attitude is that of yours? Nothing. I chuckled softly. I just wanted to let you know and tell your daughter to get ready to move. I already gave up the lease on that house we used to live in. Oh, and her things, I had the cleaning lady throw them away as trash. After all, trash belongs in the trash bin. After saying that, without waiting for her to react, I hung up the phone. Also, I had Emma set up a call whitelist for me. From then on, no one could call me except people in my contacts. The world fell silent. For the next few days, I lived a life I had never even dared to imagine. I slept until I woke naturally and ate breakfast prepared by a Michelin chef in the private rooftop dining room. Then I went to Skyward Capital's office and listened to Patrick and his team explain the company's business as if reading a scripture. Although I didn't understand most of it, the feeling of holding power when signing documents was undeniably intoxicating. In the afternoons, I had the driver take me to the city's most upscale mall to outfit myself from head to toe. I no longer look at price tags. The sales assistants follow me, introducing the season's new styles in the sweetest voices. I only need to nod or shake my head. That feeling is like an emperor selecting tribute. That day, I was trying on a watch in a Patek Philippe boutique. A Starry Sky watch priced at $3.6 million was on my wrist. Its blue dial was so deep it seemed ready to draw in a person's soul. Mr. Johnson, your temperament and this star and moon tourbillon are truly a perfect match, the store manager flattered from the side. I was admiring myself in the mirror when a familiar voice suddenly came from the shop entrance. Wow, Jake, look how grand this place is. It was Sophia. I looked up and saw her in the mirror, arm in arm with Jake, the two of them walking in together intimately. What a small world for enemies. Jake was dressed to the nines today, hair slicked back and face powdery, a gold Rolex on his wrist, looking every inch a nouveau riche. Sophia looked a bit haggard, with faint dark circles under her eyes, but she wore exquisite makeup and a Chanel dress from the latest collection. It seems that after breaking up with me, she threw herself completely into Jake's arms. As soon as they came in, their eyes were drawn to the watch on my wrist. Sir, please take that watch out and let me see it. Jake pointed at the one I was trying on, his tone abrupt. The store manager looked troubled. Sorry, sir. This watch, Mr. Johnson is trying on. Only then did Jake notice me. He was momentarily stunned. Then his face broke into an exaggerated, contemptuous smile. Oh, who did I think it was? It's Ethan. He sized me up from head to toe. Well, dressed up in a suit? Look at you. What happened? Sophia dumped you and you got hurt. Come here to show off like some big shot. Sophia also saw me. Her expression instantly turned a bit awkward. She averted her eyes and didn't dare to meet my gaze. I couldn't be bothered with him and told the store manager, wrap this watch up. The manager immediately beamed. Okay, Mr. Johnson. Jake's smile froze on his face. He obviously hadn't expected me to actually buy it. Wrapped up? Do you know how much this watch costs? He sneered. $3.6 million. Even if I sold you, I couldn't afford it. Don't put on airs here. Aren't you ashamed? A few of the other customers nearby also looked our way and whispered. I didn't speak. I simply took a black card out of my wallet and handed it to the store manager. This was the infinite limit black card Patrick had given me. He said it was the highest status symbol at Skyward Capital. The manager saw the card and his hands trembled. He hurriedly took it with both hands, respectfully, as if receiving an imperial edict. Mr. Johnson, please wait a moment. Jake also recognized the card, or rather, he recognized that legendary card. His eyes widened like copper bells. His mouth opened wide enough to fit an egg. Sent. Centurion black gold card? Impossible. This must be fake. How could you possibly have something like this? He cried out in a loss of composure. I watched him with composed leisure, as if watching a clown putting on a show. Just because you don't have one doesn't mean others don't, I said calmly. At that moment, the card approval beep sounded. The manager cautiously handed the card back to me, along with a beautifully packaged watch box. Mr. Johnson, your watch. The whole shop fell silent. Everyone looked at me with the kind of gaze reserved for a monster. Jake's face flushed red, then pale, a spectacle. Sophia looked at me with an utterly unfamiliar expression. Her beautiful eyes were full of shock, confusion, and a trace of remorse I couldn't read. Impossible. Ethan, where did you get so much money? She murmured, as if she couldn't accept the reality before her. I put on my newly bought watch, moved my wrist, and it felt good. I walked up to them and stopped. I looked at Jake and smiled. What? Not so arrogant now. Then I turned my gaze to Sophia. She instinctively took a half step back and gripped Jake's arm tighter. I looked at her, my expression completely calm. You've always thought I was poor, that I couldn't give you the life you want, haven't you? I tapped the watch on my wrist, and then the Rolls-Royce Phantom parked at the door. Now, I have all of that, but what does any of it have to do with you? After saying that, I stopped looking at them and walked straight out of the boutique. Behind me came Jake's furious curses and Sophia's suppressed, faint sobbing. That crying no longer stirred a ripple in my heart. In the days that followed, Jake and Sophia seemed to vanish from my world. I never saw them again. What I could see from Patrick's daily reports was the grim state of Grand Horizon Group. Having lost Imperial Dawn Properties, their largest client, Grand Horizon Group's revenue plummeted. Banks, sensing danger, began calling in loans. Other suppliers also came knocking to collect debts. George Miller was frantic, desperately begging for help everywhere, but no one dared to assist him. Because the entire building materials industry had heard the rumor, the Miller family had offended a powerful figure they couldn't provoke. As for who that powerful figure was, no one knew. This kind of unknown fear was the most tormenting. They say half of George Miller's hair went white, and in just half a month he lost 20 jeans. Jake no longer dared to show off like before. He sold his BMW to plug the holes in the company. The bunch of fair-weather friends who used to orbit him now kept their distance. Hearing this news, I felt a sick sort of pleasure. I didn't think of myself as cruel. I was simply taking back what belonged to me, my dignity. That day I was in my office reviewing a proposal to invest in a diamond mine in Africa. Emma knocked and came in. Chairman, there's a woman downstairs with the surname Taylor who insists on seeing you. She says she's your former mother-in-law. Emma's expression was a bit odd when she said the three words former mother-in-law. I froze for a moment before I realized who she meant. Margaret, how did she find her way here? Let her come up, I said. I was very curious. What kind of look would this woman, who once looked at me through her nostrils, have now? A few minutes later, Margaret was brought into my office. The moment she walked in, she was overwhelmed by the vast, lavish office. She stood awkwardly in the doorway, not knowing where to put her hands. She wasn't the haughty woman she used to be today. She wore an old outfit, her face smeared with makeup inappropriate for the occasion, making her look somewhat ridiculous. Ethan, she forced out a smile uglier than crying, her voice trembling. I leaned back in the executive chair, said nothing, and simply watched her. She looked awkward under my gaze, rubbing her hands, and inched forward step by step. Ethan, Aoni, it was wrong of me before. I didn't recognize a great man when I saw one. Don't take it to heart. She forced a smile. Look, you and Sophia have been together 7 years. Any misunderstanding can be talked through. Sophia still cares about you. She's been crying at home every day these past few days. Can't even eat. Get to the point. I cut her off. I knew she didn't come to see me just to plead for Sophia. Margaret's smile froze for a moment. Then she put on a pitiful look. Ethan, you're a good kid. You surely can't bear to see Sophia suffer, right? She shifted tone and started playing the victim. That little bastard Jake, he's not even human. He dumped Sophia. He even said our Sophia is just cheap, something to play with, and that's it. I raised an eyebrow, a little surprised. Oh, they broke up. Isn't that right? Margaret slapped her thigh, as if she'd found an outlet. His company is about to go bankrupt, so he's taking it out on Sophia. He even hit her yesterday. Look, there are still marks on her face. As she spoke, she reached for her phone to show me the photos. Enough. I interrupted her again. What does this have to do with me? Margaret froze. She probably expected that upon hearing Sophia had been bullied, I would at least show some sympathy or anger. But I didn't. My heart had already died that night at the alumni reunion. Ethan, how can you say that? She panicked. Sophia is desperate right now. Jake dumped her. She lost her job. She only has you left. So what? I looked at her, my gaze cold. You want me to be a rebound, to pick up someone who's been used up by someone else? The two words trash, I said lightly, but they landed like two slaps hard across Margaret's face. Her face instantly flushed the color of liver. You, how can you say that about Sophia? She was with you for 7 years. Yeah, 7 years. I stood up, walked over to her, looking down at her from above. In those 7 years, how did you treat me? You called me a pauper, a loser, forced Sophia to break up with me. Now that I have some money, you come crawling and begging? Margaret, do you think everyone is like you, spineless? Margaret was forced to step back by my powerful aura until she finally fell and sat on the ground. She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. The man in front of her was no longer the poor kid who used to be timid and didn't dare to take a breath in her presence. Security. I pressed the call button on the table. 2 bodyguards rushed in immediately. Throw her out. I pointed at Margaret on the floor and said expressionlessly, from now on, this person and a woman named Sophia are not allowed to set foot in this building. Margaret's cries and curses were shut out by the heavy office door. I returned to the floor-to-ceiling window, watched the embarrassed figure being escorted out by security downstairs, and felt not a single ripple in my heart. I'm just cleaning up some rubbish that should have been cleared out long ago. I thought that would be the end of it. Unexpectedly, a few days later, an even bigger farce was waiting for me. This evening was a charity gala hosted by Imperial Dawn Properties. As the controlling shareholder of Imperial Dawn, I was invited to attend as the most important guest. I wasn't interested in this kind of occasion, but Patrick said it was important. As the heir of Skyward Capital, this would be my first full public appearance. I had no choice but to change into a bespoke gown, ride in that ostentatious Rolls-Royce, and go to the banquet. The ballroom was on the top floor of a 6-star hotel with dazzling crystal chandeliers, fragrant dresses and styled hair, and clinking glasses everywhere. Those in attendance were all prominent figures in the city. My arrival immediately drew everyone's attention. Mr. Leonard Harris, chairman of Imperial Dawn Properties, a man in his 50s and on the heavy side, personally greeted me at the door and, bowing and smiling all the way, led me to the head table. Those around were whispering, speculating about my identity. Who is this young man? Leonard actually went to greet him personally. I've never seen him before. Look at his aura. He must be someone important. I ignored those looks, merely holding a glass of champagne and listlessly listening to those businessmen praise one another. Just then, a commotion came from the entrance of the banquet hall. I instinctively looked up and saw 2 people I hadn't expected, George Miller and Jake. How did the father and son sneak in? George was wearing an obviously ill-fitting suit, his hair slicked back, but it couldn't hide his haggard, anxious face. Jake trailed behind him, head down, looking defeated with none of his former swagger. They were clearly there to plead with someone. They weaved between the tables, wearing smiles and handing out business cards, but everyone avoided them like the plague. No one dared to be associated with Grand Horizon Group at a time like this. George's gaze swept the room and finally landed on Mr. Leonard Harris at the head table. His eyes lit up as if he'd seized the last straw. He grabbed Jake and hurried over. Mr. Harris! Mr. Harris! Mr. Harris of Imperial Dawn saw them and immediately frowned, a look of disgust showing on his face. How did you get in? Where's security? Mr. Harris, please don't be angry. We just want to have a drink with you. George smiled humbly, holding out a glass with both hands. Mr. Harris, our Grand Horizon has been working with you for over 10 years. Even if we haven't done much, We've put in the effort. You can't just cut off our business like that. Please have mercy and give us a way to survive." Mr. Harris looked impatient. "George, it's no use telling me. This is what the big boss upstairs wants. I'm just an employee. What can I do?" "Big boss." George froze. "Which big boss?" "Mr. Harris, do me a favor and introduce me. I'll go kneel and apologize to him in person." Mr. Harris glanced at me in the seat of honor and didn't dare say anything. At that moment, Jake saw me too. He froze first, then a complex blend of jealousy, malice, and bewilderment instantly washed over his face. "It's you." He pointed at me, his voice trembling. "You did this. Isn't that right?" His shout drew everyone's attention to him. I put down my wine glass, wiped the corner of my mouth with a napkin, and stood up. I looked at him and smiled. "So what if I do?" My voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet banquet hall it reached everyone's ears clearly. Everyone drew a cold breath. George finally reacted as well. Following Mr. Harris's odd gaze and combining it with Jake's words, a terrible thought formed in his mind. He stared at me with a look as if he were seeing a ghost, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. That poor kid he had always thought he could bully at will, the loser in his son's eyes, was actually the legendary big shot who could, with a mere flick of his finger, destroy his family. This reversal was so dramatic that he couldn't accept it. "No, impossible." Jake kept murmuring, "How could you possibly be? Why is it impossible?" I walked up to him and tapped his cheek. The gesture was exactly the same as the one he had made to me at the alumni reunion. "Didn't you say I'm not good enough for Sophia? Didn't you think you're nobler than me?" I leaned toward his ear and said in a voice only the two of us could hear, "Right now, with a single sentence, I can make you and your father disappear from this city. Do you believe me?" Jake's body trembled violently, cold sweat instantly soaking through his shirt. Fear, bone-deep fear, overwhelmed him. With a soft thud, Jake's legs went weak, and he actually felt his knees on the spot. Immediately, George reacted too, and with a plop, he knelt down as well. "Mr. Johnson, Chairman, it was my failure to recognize a great man. I failed in raising my son. I beg your magnanimity, spare us." George exclaimed as he frantically kowtowed, his forehead soon bleeding. The whole room erupted in uproar. Everyone looked at me with a gaze of reverence and fear. What kind of background does this young man have? He actually made the chairman of Grand Horizon Group kneel and kowtow in public. I looked at these two men at my feet, humble as ants, but I didn't feel much pleasure. I only felt utterly bland. At that moment, a woman in a white evening gown rushed out of the crowd and, crying, threw herself at my feet. "Ethan, it was Sophia." Sophia's look today was different from the flamboyance she showed at the alumni gathering that day. She was wearing a simple white dress, her long hair draped over her shoulders, light makeup on her face, tears streaming down, looking pitiably delicate. This was the trick she used best. Every time we argued, as long as she showed that look, I would soften. But now I only feel nauseated. "Ethan, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." She clung to my leg, crying with mascara-streaked tears. I shouldn't have been ambiguous with Jake, shouldn't have been vain, shouldn't have listened to my mom. "Please, will you forgive me? Let's start over. Let's go back to how we were, okay?" Her crying drew even more attention. A tycoon's revenge drama instantly turned into a melodramatic romantic morality play. I looked at her, my eyes without a trace of warmth. "Sophia, are you mistaken about something?" I said slowly. "Do you think I did all this to win you back?" Sophia froze, tilting that tear-streaked face back, looking at me in confusion. "I did all of this," I said word by word, "just to tell you, you are not worthy. Not worthy of humiliating me, not worthy of looking down on me, and certainly not worthy of earning my forgiveness." My voice was very cold, like shards of ice, piercing the heart of everyone present. Sophia went rigid. The last trace of hope in her eyes was completely extinguished. "Get lost." I lifted my leg lightly and broke free of her hand. She collapsed to the ground, dazed, like a puppet whose soul had been pulled out. I no longer looked at her, nor at the Miller father and son kneeling on the ground. I said to the Mr. Leonard Harris beside me, "Mr. Harris, the air here isn't very good. Please clear away the trash." Mr. Leonard Harris immediately understood, waved his hand, and a few security guards rushed over, dragging Miller and his son and the distraught Sophia out of the banquet hall like dead dogs. The world was finally peaceful again. The banquet continued, but the atmosphere had completely changed. No one dared speak loudly anymore. Everyone's eyes on me were filled with awe. They came forward one after another to toast me, saying all sorts of flattering things, trying to get close to me. I replied with a few words and soon felt annoyed. I walked out onto the banquet hall's terrace and lit a cigarette. The night wind was cold, blowing against my face and clearing my scattered thoughts a little. The thrill of revenge had reached its peak in that moment. But after the climax came a vast emptiness. I thought I would feel happy, feel satisfied, but it didn't. I just felt it was pointless. I spent 7 years loving someone, and in the end it was repaid with betrayal and humiliation. Then, in less than a month, I destroyed the people who humiliated me. All of this felt like an absurd farce, and I, from beginning to end, was like a clown. "Chairman." Patrick's voice sounded from behind. He draped a coat over me. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Not great." I blew out a ring of smoke. "It feels very empty." Patrick smiled, as if he had anticipated my reaction. "That's normal. When your power completely crushes your enemies, revenge itself loses its pleasure." He stood beside me, looking at the distant night view, and said slowly, "The old man once said true strength is not stepping on a single ant, but having the power to crush all the ants and choosing instead to build a world of your own." Build a world of my own? I stared at the cigarette in my hand and fell into thought. Maybe Patrick was right. My horizons should no longer be limited to these tedious grudges and entanglements. What I possess are the stars and the sea. Why would I turn back to look at the maggots in the gutter? After the banquet ended, I did not return to the hotel immediately. I had the driver take me to the riverside. The riverbank at midnight was very quiet, with only the sound of the water lapping against the embankment. I walked alone along the levee for a long time. I was thinking about my past, my present, and my future. The Ethan who had humbled himself to the dust for love was already dead. Now I, sitting on $1 trillion in wealth, wield great power and can easily decide others' lives, deaths, honors, and shames. What about the future? Do I really have to, like Patrick said, learn to be the monarch of a business empire? I don't know. All I know is I don't want to go back to that kind of life anymore. Dawn was breaking when I returned to the hotel. Just off the elevator, I saw Emma waiting at the door of my suite, looking somewhat anxious. "Chairman, something's happened." "What is it?" "Sophia. She jumped off Riverfront Bridge." Emma's voice was very low. "They just pulled her out and took her to the hospital. Right now, her life hangs in the balance." My heart dropped. Although I no longer had any feelings for her, I still couldn't remain unmoved when I heard the news. After all, she was the person I had loved for 7 years. "Go to the hospital," I said. The car sped along the road to the hospital. My mind was in chaos. I didn't know what kind of mood had driven me there. Was it guilt, sympathy, or simply to confirm an outcome? When I arrived at the hospital, the emergency room lights were still on. Margaret sat on the bench in the corridor, her hair disheveled, her gaze vacant, as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. When she saw me, she lunged over like a madwoman, grabbing my clothes, hitting and cursing. "Ethan, you murderer. You're the one who drove my daughter to her death. You ruined her. I'll fight you." My 2 bodyguards immediately stepped forward and pulled her away. I ignored her shouting and just stared at the tightly shut emergency room door. An hour later, the emergency room door opened. A doctor came out, took off his mask, his face full of exhaustion. "Who is the patient's family?" Margaret rushed over. "Doctor, how about my daughter?" The doctor shook his head and sighed. "I'm sorry. We've done everything we could. The patient was underwater for too long, which caused multiple organ failure, and there are no vital signs." Margaret went black at the edges of her vision and fainted outright. The scene erupted into chaos. I stood rooted to the spot, motionless. Sophia is dead. The news struck my heart like a heavy hammer. I thought I would feel relieved, even a hint of satisfaction. But I didn't. I only felt a bone-deep coldness and bewilderment. My revenge, in such a brutal way, came to an ending I had never imagined. I won. I trampled all my enemies underfoot. But why can't I feel even a bit happy? I looked out the window at the end of the corridor. The sky was already light. That gray-white sky felt like my mood at this moment. Hollow and oppressive. I didn't go to Sophia's funeral. Patrick handled everything for me. With a sum of money, he silenced the hysterical Margaret and kept the matter from causing any ripples in society. Since then, I shut myself in the hotel and didn't go out for several days running. I didn't go to the office, nor did I see anyone. Every day, I sit in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city's sunrises and sunsets, replaying my past with Sophia over and over. I remember the first time we met, at the university welcome party. She wore a white dress and looked like a fairy. I remember the first time we held hands on the school playground. My palms were all sweaty. I remember us squeezed into that tiny rented room, eating instant noodles together and dreaming about the future. I remember every time she smiled at me, every time she clung to me and acted spoiled. Those once beautiful moments have now all turned into the sharpest knives, cutting into my heart again and again. I began to doubt myself. Did I really do something wrong? If I had been less decisive at the alumni reunion, if I hadn't said those hurtful things at the banquet, if I had left her some room to breathe, would she still be alive? Was my revenge too excessive? I fell into deep self-denial and pain. The enormous fortune that once made me ecstatic now seemed meaningless to me. I even had an absurd thought. If I could bring Sophia back to life, I would be willing to give it all up. Just as I was about to be consumed by that emotion, Patrick arrived. He didn't say much. He just handed me a tablet. "Chairman, take a look at this. Maybe it will make you feel a little better." I took it puzzled. On the tablet, a video was playing. The footage was a bit shaky, like it was taken secretly. The location was a cafe. In the video, Sophia was sitting across from a man. That man, I didn't recognize him. I heard Sophia say to the man, "The plan went smoothly. That idiot Ethan has been pushed to the brink by me. He must be full of guilt now, thinking he drove me to my death." My pupils contracted instantly. In the video, the Sophia who was supposed to be dead was sitting there alive, a triumphant smile on her face. "What's the next step?" the man asked. Next, Sophia lifted her coffee, took a sip, and the corner of her mouth curved into a calculating smile, is to wait until he's at his most miserable and vulnerable, and then I'll resurrect myself. By then, he'll obey my every command. That huge inheritance of his should have a share for me too. The video stopped abruptly there. My hands were shaking violently, not from anger, but from a kind of relief, as if returned from hell, a survivor's gratefulness. What is going on?" I looked up at Patrick, my voice hoarse. Patrick explained calmly, "Sophia is not dead. The day she jumped into the river was just a martyrdom act staged by her and Jake. They bribed the hospital doctors and nurses and forged a death certificate. Their goal was to make you feel guilty so they could manipulate you mentally and ultimately scheme for your fortune." "Jake?" I frowned. "Isn't he already bankrupt?" "Yes, but he wasn't willing to accept it. So he and Sophia hit it off and decided to make one last desperate move." Patrick said they thought their plan was foolproof, but they underestimated Skyward Capital's intelligence capabilities. From the moment they started contacting that fake doctor, our people had already put them under surveillance. I leaned back on the sofa, closed my eyes, and exhaled a long breath. It turned out that everything had been nothing more than an even more despicable con. I hadn't driven anyone to death. The guilt and pain I thought I felt were all traps they had carefully laid. I opened my eyes, and the last traces of confusion and weakness in them also vanished completely. In their place came an unprecedented coldness and clarity. "Where are they?" I asked. "It's all under control," Patrick said, "including the doctor they bribed, and Sophia's mother Margaret. She was involved in the plan as well. How you wish to deal with them?" Please instruct. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Outside the window, the sun was bright. I looked at my hands. These hands that had once humbly carried her bag, washed dishes for her, and written code to earn money for her. And now, these same hands held the power to give life and take it away. Attorney, I said slowly, charge them all with fraud, forging official documents, extortion, and multiple other crimes. Put them all away. Let them repent for the rest of their lives in prison. Also, I paused, adding, make sure they live a little comfortably in there. Patrick bowed slightly. Understood, Chairman. 1 month later, I sat on Skyward Capital's private jet, flying to Switzerland. I was going to see the grandfather I had never met. At his graveside, the plane pierced the clouds, sunlight flooding the cabin. I watched the shifting sea of clouds outside the window, my heart utterly calm. Jake, Sophia, Margaret, everyone involved in their scheme, were sentenced. What awaited them was a long stretch behind bars. Grand Horizon Group had also been completely liquidated. Everything had settled. My revenge had finally come to an end in a way I could accept. I did not become a murderer, nor did I become a fool who was deceived. I won, and I won clean. Emma handed me a glass of red wine. Chairman, this was your grandfather's favorite when he was alive. Romanicani from 1982. I took the wine glass, gently swirling the dark red liquid inside. Assistant Davis, I asked suddenly, tell me, what can money and power actually bring a person? Emma paused, apparently not expecting me to ask such a philosophical question. She thought for a moment, then answered earnestly, I think they don't bring anything by themselves, but they can infinitely amplify what's inside you. If you're kind at heart, they'll give you the ability to do more good. If you're evil at heart, they'll turn you into a monster. But most of the time, they're just a mirror, letting you see yourself more clearly and see others more clearly too. See yourself clearly and see others clearly too. I smiled. Yeah, if not for this fortune falling from the sky, I might never have seen Sophia's true face, nor seen deep into my own heart to discover such intense desire and ruthlessness buried there. I took a sip of red wine. It was rich and left a long aftertaste. Attorney, I said through the cabin intercom to Patrick back at headquarters, the investment plan for that African diamond mine. I think it's acceptable. Also, set up a charitable foundation in my parents' name. For the first fund, transfer $10 billion. All right, Chairman. On the other end of the line, Patrick's relieved voice came through. I hung up and looked out at the blue sky and white clouds. I knew my war was over, but my life, the one that belonged to me, was just beginning. I'm no longer the Ethan who humbled himself for love, nor the demon bent solely on revenge. I am Ethan Johnson, the heir to Skyward Capital. My future is the stars and the sea.